First contact. The Veldarin scout ship Tranquil Observer slipped silently into Earth's orbit, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to human detection systems. Commander Ilara stood on the bridge, her luminescent blue skin pulsing with increasing stress as data flooded the ship's central display. "This can't possibly be accurate," she whispered, her four eyes widening simultaneously. "Run the environmental analysis again." Science Officer Philios adjusted his breathing apparatus, unnecessary on their ship, but a comforting habit, and verified the readings. "Confirmed, Commander. The data is consistent. This planet should not support complex life." The bridge crew fell silent as they absorbed the environmental data from the blue-green world below. Earth was, by any reasonable standard, a death trap. Its crust floated on a sea of molten rock, periodically rupturing to spew superheated magma onto the surface. Its weather systems generated winds strong enough to flatten structures, electrical discharges that could instantly carbonize organic matter, and precipitation that varied from life-giving water to destructive ice, and even acid in some regions. Most disturbing of all was the planet's history. Earth had experienced at least 5 mass extinction events, each one wiping out the majority of species alive at the time. By all logic, intelligent life should never have evolved here. Yet it had. "Focus the scanners on their population centers," Ilara ordered. The main screen shifted to show human cities, sprawling metropolitan areas with millions of inhabitants living in structures that scraped the sky. Despite knowing their planet regularly experienced ground-shaking tremors that could topple them in seconds. "They build directly on fault lines," Philios noted with disbelief. "They construct homes in floodplains, on the slopes of active volcanoes, in tornado-prone regions, and in deserts where temperatures regularly exceed the survivable range for carbon-based life." "Show me their adaptation mechanisms," Ilara commanded. The screen changed again, this time displaying humans in various environments. The Veldarins watched in horror as humans dove into crushing ocean depths, climbed frozen mountains without environmental protection, and deliberately exposed themselves to extreme heat in recreational chambers they called saunas. "Are they being compelled to do this?" asked Security Chief Foran, her tentacles writhing in distress. "No," Philios replied. "They appear to be engaging in these activities voluntarily. For pleasure." The concept was so alien to the Veldarins that several crew members had to leave the bridge. The Veldarin homeworld, Harmony, was a paradise of stability. No tectonic activity, mild seasons, predictable weather, and no natural predators. Their evolution had focused on intelligence and cooperation rather than survival against environmental extremes. "What about their physiology?" Ilara asked, forcing herself to continue the analysis. The medical data was perhaps the most disturbing of all. Humans were persistence predators, capable of pursuing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They could lose significant amounts of blood and survive. They could function with broken bones. Their immune systems were constantly at war with countless pathogens, and they even deliberately introduced weakened diseases into their bodies to strengthen their defenses. "They can regenerate," Medical Officer Neria reported with awe. "Not completely, but their tissues actively repair themselves. Broken bones grow back stronger. Damaged muscle rebuilds with greater capacity. And this," she highlighted a section of the data, "their pain response. They can simply ignore it. Ignore pain." Voran's voice rose in pitch. "That's their evolutionary advantage. Continuing to function while being damaged." "It appears so," Neria confirmed, "and they've developed medical techniques that build upon this capacity. They deliberately damage their muscles through exercise to strengthen them. They expose themselves to solar radiation to darken their skin. They even cut open their bodies to repair internal systems, then continue functioning days later." Commander Ilara sank into her command chair, her bioluminescence dimming with the gravity of their discovery. The Veldarin Collective had explored thousands of worlds over centuries, encountering species with various capabilities, but nothing like this. "What about their technology?" she asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. Philios hesitated before bringing up the next display. They'd progressed from primitive combustion engines to rudimentary space travel in less than 300 planetary cycles. Their technological advancement accelerates during periods of conflict. Conflict. Ilara's voice was barely audible. On Harmony, conflict was so rare that it required specialized vocabulary to describe. "Yes, Commander. They call it war. They organize into opposing groups and attempt to destroy each other using increasingly sophisticated weapons. Each conflict drives innovation in multiple fields. They've harnessed atomic energy both for power and for weapons capable of destroying entire cities." The bridge fell silent again as the implications became clear. Humans hadn't just survived on a death world. They had been forged by it. Their entire evolution had prepared them to face conditions that would kill most sentient species. They didn't flee from danger. They confronted it, adapted to it, conquered it. Their entertainment. Communications specialist Zora interrupted, her voice trembling. "Commander, you need to see this." The main screen filled with images from human films and games. The Veldarans watched in horror as humans depicted scenarios of global catastrophe, alien invasions, apocalyptic disasters, and endless variations of conflict and survival against impossible odds. "They imagine worse conditions than they already face," Ilara whispered. "They envision new ways their world might try to kill them, then create stories about overcoming those challenges. They find this entertaining." "Not just entertaining," Zora corrected. "Inspiring." The final data set confirmed what Ilara already suspected. Humans were expanding. They had already visited their moon and sent robotic explorers throughout their solar system. They spoke openly about terraforming other planets, establishing colonies, and eventually traveling to the stars. A species forged in the crucible of a death world was planning to leave it, not to escape, but to conquer new challenges. "Prepare a priority transmission to the Collective Council," Commander Ilara ordered, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. Classification: Existential Insight. Subject: Humanity. As the tranquil observer prepared to leave Earth's orbit, Ilara formulated her report. The humans weren't just another intelligent species. They were something the Veldaran Collective had never encountered before. Beings who viewed hardship not as something to avoid, but as something to overcome, who treated the universe's most hostile conditions as opportunities rather than threats. "May the harmonious stars guide us," she whispered, watching Earth recede on the view screen. "We have discovered a species that calls a death world home. And they're coming to the stars." The diplomatic dance. The grand conclave of the Veldaran Collective buzzed with nervous energy as delegates from all 27 member worlds gathered in the floating crystal chambers of Harmony. The discovery of Earth had sent shockwaves through their peaceful civilization, prompting the first emergency session in over 2 centuries. High Counselor Niven's bioluminescence pulsed with authority as he addressed the assembly. "We have reviewed Commander Ilara's report extensively. After much deliberation, we've reached a consensus. We must establish diplomatic contact with humanity before they venture further into space." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The evidence was clear. Humans were advancing rapidly. Within decades, they would develop faster than light travel. The Collective could either meet them as established allies or encounter them as unpredictable newcomers to the galactic stage. "Ambassador Theron will lead the diplomatic mission," Niven continued. "We will approach them openly, sharing knowledge and technology as a gesture of goodwill." "Is that wise?" a delegate from the outer colonies questioned. "Giving a death world species advanced technology. They will develop it regardless," Theron replied, stepping forward. The veteran diplomat's skin shimmered with calm confidence despite his inner trepidation. "Better they advance with our guidance than alone." 3 standard months later, Ambassador Theron stood in the United Nations Assembly Hall in New York City, the first official representative of alien life to address humanity. His environmental suit, necessary in Earth's oxygen-rich, pathogen-filled atmosphere, gleamed under the bright lights as cameras broadcast his image to billions of humans worldwide. "People of Earth," he began, his translator converting his harmonic speech to human language. "The Velderan Collective extends greetings and an offer of friendship. We come in peace, seeking to share knowledge and establish mutual understanding between our civilizations." The human response was overwhelmingly positive, yet deeply unsettling to the Velderan delegation. Humans weren't afraid. They were excited, curious, eager to learn about alien life and technology. They had spent generations imagining first contact scenarios, many violent, and seemed almost disappointed by the peaceful reality. In the private chambers assigned to the Velderan embassy, Theron met with his team after a week of initial negotiations. "Their response is unexpected," he admitted. "They're processing the existence of alien life with remarkable adaptability. They adapt to everything." Security Attaché Vorin noted grimly. "It's their primary evolutionary trait." Cultural specialist Mirat displayed her findings on the central hologram. "Their fiction predicted our existence centuries ago. They've imagined countless scenarios for extraterrestrial contact. They've mentally rehearsed this moment for generations." "What have they asked for so far?" Theron inquired. "Primarily knowledge," replied Science Attaché Kellen. "Faster than light travel principles, advanced medicine, energy production. But they're not passive recipients. They actively propose modifications to our technology during the very explanations of how it works. They improve on designs they barely understand," Vorin added. "It's unnerving." Theron had noticed this phenomenon in his own diplomatic meetings. When presented with Velderan concepts of governance based on harmonious consensus, human diplomats immediately began suggesting modifications, hybrid systems combining Velderan cooperation with Earth's competitive aspects. "They don't just absorb information," Mira observed. "They transform it, adapt it, make it their own. And they take risks we would never consider," Kellen added. "When I explained our careful 3-century implementation of antimatter containment technology, their lead scientist asked why we didn't simply try the experimental approach their theorists had already conceived, an approach our safety protocols would never permit." The following day, Theron accompanied a human delegation through the Velderan ship in orbit. Despite his diplomatic training, he couldn't hide his shock when Secretary General Martinez casually mentioned humanity's darkest moments. "We've nearly destroyed ourselves several times," she said, examining a Velderan propulsion system with keen interest. "Nuclear weapons, climate disruption, biological engineering gone wrong. Each time, we pulled back from the edge and emerged stronger." "You speak of near extinction with remarkable casualness," Theron observed. Martinez smiled. "Adversity has been our teacher, Ambassador. When we make mistakes, even catastrophic ones, we learn." Later that week, Theron experienced Earth's environment firsthand when the human delegation insisted on hosting a gathering at Yellowstone National Park, built atop one of the planet's most dangerous supervolcanoes. Standing at the edge of a geothermal pool hot enough to dissolve his Velderan flesh, surrounded by humans who seemed utterly unconcerned by the apocalyptic caldera beneath their feet, Theron finally grasped the fundamental difference between their species. "Beautiful, isn't it?" asked Dr. Chen, the Chinese representative, gesturing toward the prismatic hot spring. "Life finds a way even in extreme environments. There are bacteria thriving in that near-boiling water. You build recreation areas on active geological features," Theron noted, his translator failing to fully convey his disbelief. "Of course," Chen replied. "Why waste a perfectly good view?" That evening, as human diplomats consumed various mild toxins they called cocktails, Theron observed their social dynamics with growing fascination. They argued passionately about politics, religion, and philosophy, conflicts that would indicate serious social fracture in Velderan society, then laughed together moments later. "They thrive on disagreement," Mira whispered to him. They've evolved social systems that harness conflict rather than suppress it. Is that sustainable? Theron wondered. It shouldn't be, she replied. Yet here they are, still advancing despite, perhaps because of, their internal conflicts. The diplomatic mission's most concerning discovery came 3 months into their stay, when Theron was granted access to human military facilities as a gesture of transparency. The Veldarans had expected to find weapons of mass destruction. These were mentioned openly in human historical records. What they hadn't anticipated was humanity's approach to defense planning. This is our continuity of civilization program, General Williams explained, leading them through a vast underground complex in the Rocky Mountains. Seed banks, cultural archives, industrial blueprints, genetic samples from Earth's biodiversity, everything needed to rebuild human civilization after a worst-case scenario. You expect to face extinction? Theron asked carefully. We planned for it, Williams corrected. We've identified 47 distinct scenarios that could end human civilization as we know it. For each one, we have multiple contingency plans. The general spoke with pride rather than fear as he showed them hardened data centers, self-sufficient bunkers, and orbital backup systems. Humans didn't just acknowledge the possibility of catastrophe. They anticipated it, prepared for it, refused to accept it as final. In his private communication to the collective council that night, Theron struggled to convey the implications of what he'd learned. Honored Council, he began, humanity represents something unique in our experience. They don't merely survive adversity. They expect it. Their history is a cycle of crisis and renewal, each time emerging more adaptable than before. He paused, searching for words that could adequately express his conclusion. Their technological progress, while impressive, is not what makes them remarkable. What truly sets humans apart is their relationship with adversity itself. Where we seek to eliminate hardship, they embrace it as the forge of their potential. They do not hope the universe will be kind. They prepare for its cruelty and find strength in that preparation. As he finished his report, Theron gazed out at the Earth glowing blue and white against the blackness of space. The Veldaran collective had never encountered a species like humanity before. Beings who had not merely survived on a death world, but had been fundamentally shaped by it, who carried its harsh lessons into the stars not as trauma but as advantage. We must proceed with both caution and respect, he concluded, for we have encountered a species that does not fear the deadly unknown. They crave it. Crisis and alliance. The emergency alert shattered the Predon silence at the Veldaran embassy. Ambassador Theron, still adapting to Earth's diurnal cycle, was jolted from his rest period by the urgent summons from both human authorities and the collective council. Astronomical anomaly detected, reported the human liaison. Dr. Harper, her face grim on the communication screen. Unknown object approaching the solar system at relativistic speed. It's massive and appears to be decelerating. Within hours, the most sophisticated telescopes from both civilizations were tracking the object. A dark, irregularly shaped mass approximately 300 kilometers across, following a trajectory that would bring it into Earth's orbit within 14 days. The Veldaran contingent and human experts gathered at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory as data streamed in. What they discovered sent ripples of dread through both species. The object was artificial in nature, comprised of an unknown material that absorbed virtually all electromagnetic radiation. More disturbing still, it was changing course in ways that defied known physics, clearly under intelligent control. It's not responding to any communication attempts, Dr. Harper reported, and it's adjusting its trajectory specifically toward Earth. The collective council, viewing the situation from their homeworld, immediately dispatched their most advanced defensive vessels. But travel time meant they wouldn't arrive for at least 3 weeks, well after the object reached Earth. We're detecting heat signatures consistent with energy weapons powering up, Security Chief Voren announced, analyzing the latest data. This appears to be a hostile approach. The revelation confirmed their worst fears. An unknown intelligence was targeting Earth, and neither humans nor Veldurans knew why. In the crisis center established beneath the Pentagon, Theron witnessed something extraordinary: human emergency response in action. Rather than panicking at the approach of a potentially extinction-level threat, the humans organized with remarkable efficiency. Military commands coordinated globally, scientists worked in continuous shifts, and civilian authorities implemented evacuation protocols for coastal cities without causing mass hysteria. "We've been rehearsing first contact scenarios for generations," explained General Williams, now heading the Unified Defense Command, "including hostile ones." "You prepared for this specific situation?" Theron asked incredulously. "Not specifically," Williams replied, "but we've war-gamed similar scenarios: asteroid deflection, alien invasion, even planet-killer weapons. Hollywood has imagined every possible way we could face extinction, and some of our best minds have quietly worked out how we might survive them." Within 3 days, humanity had mobilized its entire technological and military capacity. Nuclear missiles were repositioned for space deployment, experimental energy weapons were fast-tracked for completion, and a hastily assembled fleet of spacecraft, originally designed for peaceful exploration, was being retrofitted for defense. "Your species' capability to adapt to crisis is unprecedented," Theron observed, watching as engineers transformed a Mars habitat module into a delivery system for experimental electromagnetic pulse generators. "It's what we do," replied Dr. Chen, now leading the scientific response team. "Humans perform best with our backs against the wall." The Velduran delegation offered their advanced technology to the defense effort, but found themselves more often learning from humans than teaching them. The humans took Velduran theoretical concepts and implemented them in days rather than the decades the Veldurans would have required, accepting greater risks but achieving results that seemed impossible. When the object was 7 days from Earth, it launched the first attack, a barrage of smaller projectiles aimed at key defense installations around the planet. Most were intercepted by hastily deployed countermeasures, but some struck their targets, causing significant damage and casualties. Theron expected demoralization. Instead, he witnessed the opposite. The attacks galvanized humanity, unifying typically fractious nations and focusing their collective ingenuity on survival. Their response was not just determined but creative, approaching the threat from angles the Veldurans would never have considered. "We've identified a pattern in the projectile guidance systems," announced a young engineer barely out of university. "There's a vulnerability in how they course-correct after initial deployment." Using this insight, human forces began successfully intercepting the second wave of attacks with significantly improved efficiency. When a projectile was captured intact, human scientists immediately began reverse engineering its technology, while still under active threat. 5 days before the object would reach Earth, the humans unveiled their counteroffensive. Rather than waiting for the threat to arrive, they would take the fight to it. "We've modified our largest nuclear devices with Velduran phase shift technology," General Williams explained to a stunned Theron. "A volunteer force will deliver them directly to the object using our fastest spacecraft." "The radiation, the risk," Theron began. "Is acceptable," interrupted Colonel Reyes, who would lead the mission. "If we succeed, Earth survives. If we fail, at least we went down fighting." The concept of such self-sacrifice was alien to Velduran culture, where preservation of life was paramount. Yet here were humans volunteering for what was likely a one-way mission, facing it not with resignation, but with determined resolve. The mission launched 3 days before the object would reach Earth. 3 ships, each carrying enough firepower to shatter a small moon, accelerated toward the approaching threat. The Velduran embassy staff watched alongside billions of humans as telemetry data streamed back from the vessels. 2 ships were destroyed before reaching their target. The third, piloted by Colonel Reyes herself after her navigation systems were damaged, managed to reach the surface of the object. Her final transmission was calm, almost serene. Package delivered. It's been an honor to represent humanity. Give them hail for me. The detonation created a brief artificial star visible even in daylight. When the light faded, astronomical data confirmed the object had been severely damaged and knocked off course. It would miss Earth by millions of kilometers. In the celebration that followed, Theron observed something profound about humanity. They mourned their losses deeply, honoring the sacrifices made, but they did not dwell on the trauma. Instead, they immediately began analyzing the encounter, learning from it, preparing for the possibility that whatever intelligence had sent the object might return. "We need to understand their technology better," Dr. Chen declared in the first post-crisis meeting, "and we need to be ready if they have friends." Within weeks, humanity had already incorporated lessons from the encounter into new defense systems. They established an early warning network extending far beyond their solar system, accelerated their space exploration programs, and forged a deeper alliance with the Velderan Collective. In his final report before returning to Harmony, Ambassador Theron struggled to fully convey what he had witnessed. The Council asked whether humans were a potential threat or ally, he began. "I now understand this was the wrong question. Humans are neither inherently threatening nor naturally peaceful. They are adaptive in ways we can barely comprehend." He paused, considering his words carefully. "A species born on a gentle world like ours seeks harmony and stability. A species forged on a death world like Earth seeks challenge and growth. They do not merely survive adversity. They transform it into advantage. When faced with potential extinction, they didn't just fight for survival. They emerged stronger, more unified, more determined to expand into the stars." Theron's final recommendation to the Council was clear. "We must embrace humanity as our closest allies, not despite their death world origins, but because of them. In a universe filled with unknown threats, there could be no better companions than a species that has never known true safety, yet has never stopped reaching for the stars." As the Velderan diplomatic vessel departed Earth's orbit, Theron watched the blue planet recede from view. The humans had already begun construction on their first faster-than-light vessel, incorporating both Velderan principles and their own innovative approaches. Their progress, already remarkable, had been accelerated by the crisis. Harmony had taught the Velderans to seek peace and stability above all else. Earth had taught humans to expect challenge and overcome it. Together, Theron realized they might achieve something greater than either could alone. A civilization that could face the darkest depths of space not with fear, but with the unwavering determination that only a death world species could provide. "We feared them when we discovered their world," he mused to himself. "Now, the universe has reason to fear us both."